Hello everybody, Jonathan Rayo here with Simplified Guitar, and in this lesson I want to teach you how to take normal standard chords and transform them to where they sound amazing. Alright, I hope you're excited about this one. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now in talking about chord embellishments and how to make those chords sound better, let's start off with the main shapes, the most popular shapes that you're going to come across when learning the guitar, and that's going to be the C major, A major, G major, the E major, and D. So we're going to take those 5 shapes and we're going to make them sound beautiful. But not only that, I'm going to show you how to use these techniques, these chord embellishments, within songs or within progressions, so that you don't just know these by themselves in isolation, but that you know them in progression so that you can use them in songs. So let's start with the C chord. So this is our C major chord. Looks like this. One of the things I love to do, and I do it all the time, is to use suspended chords. And I won't use a suspended chord all the time. I will use it within a measure. I'll use some hammer-ons and pull-offs where I'll go from like a C major to a C suspended and then back to the C major. And that suspended chord, that variation of the C, is just kind of like an embellishment. It's something to just add a little bit of dynamics to the sound of the chord. So I'm not going to be holding it the whole time. So if this is my C major right here, with my first finger on the first fret of the B, second finger, second fret of the D, and third finger on the third fret of the A string. What I'm going to do to make the C suspended is I'm going to take my fourth finger, my pinky, and I'm going to put it down on the third fret of the D string. So what the suspended chord is I'm suspending the third. So your triad is made up of the root note, the first, the third, and the fifth of the scale. And what I'm doing with a suspended chord is I'm suspending the third of the scale, and I'm suspending it with either the fourth or the second. So you can have a suspended 4 or you can have a suspended 2. And in this case I'm suspending the third for the fourth note of the scale, and that is a very lovely way to add a little bit of embellishments to the C chord. So let's say I'm holding a C chord for a while. Maybe I'm holding it for like 4 measures or something. Instead of just playing that C drone all the way through 4 measures, I can embellish that, make it sound a little bit better while still holding a C chord, but just kind of throwing in that suspended and then going back to the C and then going into the suspended again. So going from C to C suspended. And what makes that sound even better is to use a hammer. And so a hammer is when you're plucking a string with your this hand with your pick, and then you use your other hand to hammer down on that string while it's still ringing out. Okay, so you have something like this. And we can use that technique of hammering to go from the C major to the C suspended. So basically I'm going to strum with this hand, and then I'm going to hammer down with my pinky to create that suspended. You can also do a C suspended second if we just take our second finger and remove it completely and just have an open D string, and that would be a C suspended 2. So we can use that back and forth. We can go from C major to C suspended 4, back to C major to C suspended 2, and we can just alternate between those because they're very similar to each other. And if a song calls for a C for a long time, you can use these suspended chords just to add a little bit more life to it. So it could sound something like this. Another really pretty thing we can do with the C is to do a C add 9, which is going to look like this. We have our C major chord. I'm just going to get rid of my first finger, and I'm going to put down my pinky on that same string, so on the B string but on the 3rd fret. And I'm going to be strumming from the A string down. And this is going to be a C add 9. It's a really beautiful variation. Another thing we can do still on that same string is just let go of that first finger again and don't put anything down. And this is going to be a C major 7. And the major 7 and the add 9, those two are really beautiful ways to have some variations of chords. So here with this C, by taking off my first finger, I'm creating that C major 7, and you can hear what that sounds like, how beautiful that is. The major 7th variation of a chord is really beautiful because it creates this dissonance. There's this clash between the root note of the chord, in this case it's the C note, and a half step below it, which in this case is going to be a B note. So that B note and that C note right next to each other really creates this odd sound that can be really beautiful when you play it. Another really beautiful way to alter that C chord is to do a C over G. And that's basically, a slash chord is just taking another note and putting it on top so that the root note now, which is C, is no longer the deepest register. It's no longer the first note that we're playing. So to do a C over G, I want to press down right here to create this G note on top and make it the lowest note that we're going to be playing. But I'm not going to put my pinky up there. It's going to be really hard to do that. So what I'm going to do is take my 3rd finger and move it up to that G string and let my pinky press down on the 3rd fret of the A string to create that C. And this is my C over G. The C over G, a good use for that would be to end on that C over G. If you're playing in a song in the key of C and you're ending the song on a C chord, ending it on that C over G is a really beautiful way to end it, and especially on an upstrum. So something like this. And we can combine a couple of these. We can do this C over G and remove my first finger and create a major 7th. So this is going to be C major 7th over G, sort of. But it's a really beautiful chord. You can even strum this in reverse to make a really pretty sound. All right, let's go to the A chord now. So this is our A major using our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger, all on the 2nd fret of the D, G, and B string. So, and again, we're not playing that low E string just like with the C chord. We're just going to start here on the A string. All right, so going back to that idea of the suspended chords, we can use suspended chords here as well with this A chord. And that's going to be taking down here this pinky finger. We're just going to slide that up a fret to the 3rd fret of the B string to create a suspended 4. And this is what that sounds like. We could do the same thing by removing that pinky altogether to get another suspended chord, and that's going to be a suspended 2. And again, in the middle of a strum pattern, we can alternate between a regular A major to an A suspended 4 and A suspended 2. Instead of just holding the A all by itself, we can shift between those suspended chords just to create some variation. Another beautiful variation is going to be the A add 9. So to do that, I can't play with my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger anymore. I'm going to need to switch and use my first finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, second finger on the second fret of the B string, and then I'm going to take my pinky and use it up here on the fourth fret of the G string, and that's going to create my 9. I'm adding my 9 right here with that finger. Okay, and so for this one, I'm going to do the same thing, strum from the A string down. Ooh, so nice. This chord sounds really nice in finger picking, something like this. And then we've also got the A major 7, which if we go back to our shape like this, second, third, and fourth finger, just like a regular A major, I'm going to use my first finger and press it on the first fret of the G string, and then I'm going to take off my second finger. And this is going to create an A major 7. Now, if I take off my first finger, this is an A7, which is technically an A minor 7. This is also a very popular chord, but you'll hear it more in like maybe some folk music or that type of style. You'll hear that A minor 7. The A major 7 has a completely different sound, but it's something really beautiful, so let's listen to it. A slash chord we can use with the A is going to be an A2 over F sharp. And I love using this chord in the E chord family. And that's basically doing an A2 with our third and fourth finger on the second fret of the D and G string. So this is an A2. I'm just using these last two fingers to free up this, my other fingers, which I'm going to need in a second. So this is just the A2 that we learned earlier. But now what I'm going to do is take my second finger and I'm going to play an F sharp right here with second fret on the low E string. And while I'm pressing down right there, I'm also going to purposefully let it mute the A string, because I don't want that string to resonate. Even though the A note is fine, I'm playing an A chord, but I don't want the F sharp and the A both ringing out, because they're both really low pitch notes and they're going to muddy each other up. So I'm just going to let that F sharp ring really clear, and it's going to be, I'm kind of creating space for that F sharp to be heard nicely. Okay, so I'm going to press down there, I'm going to mute that A string, and I'm going to play the rest, all 6 strings. So you can really hear the beauty of this chord when you're playing it in progression. So let's say I'm playing a song in the key of E, and I need to go from A to E. I need to make that transition. I'm going to use the A2 up until the last measure before I switch to E, and I'm going to play that A2, and then I'm going to do an A2 over F sharp, and then I'm going to go to my E. And that's just going to create a little bit of flavor there, and I'll show you what that sounds like. So that F sharp bass note just creates that kind of walk from the A to the F sharp to the E, and it just adds some more layers to your music. All right, now let's look at the G chord. So, you know, this is a traditional way to play a G. Some people don't use the third fret on the B string, and they just play their G like this. Both is correct. They're both a regular G chord. But what I want to do first is create a G add 9. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is take off my first finger from the second fret of the A string, and I'm going to move it down to the second fret of the G string. And now I want my second finger, while it's pressing down on the third fret of the low E string, I want it to mute the A string. And what that's going to do is just create some separation for that G string to ring clear. I'm not going to have that A string ringing out at all, and it's really going to make that added 9 note really ring out even clearer. Now another thing we could do with that G is to take our pinky and put it up here on fret 4 of the D string, and that's going to create my G major 7th. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier, and just let this first finger be free and not press down on anything, still muting that A string with my second finger, and let's see what that sounds like. You can really hear that dissonance between this F sharp note and the G right next to each other. Now when I'm playing in the key of G, I like to use all of these notes that are all part of the G scale, but kind of picking around with them, and I'll maybe finger pick, and I'll use all of these, like this added 9, this major 7th note, and I'll use all these parts of the scale while I'm holding these two Gs. So I've got my G on the 3rd fret of the low E string, and my other G down here with this 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. So I've got these two Gs, and then I use my 1st and 4th finger to play on the 2nd and 4th fret, because a lot of the notes in the G scale are right there, so it makes it nice and simple to kind of just add some embellishments while playing the G chord. All right, now let's look at the E chord, the E major chord. It looks like this. Now, one of my favorite E variations is going to be the E add 9. And it's a little difficult to play because we got to stretch over 4 frets way down here at the bottom. But it's so beautiful. So basically, if this is my E chord, I'm just going to take off my 3rd finger, and I'm going to use my pinky on the 4th fret of that D string. And it's quite a stretch, but once you get used to it, it's a really beautiful chord. And I love to use this chord whenever I'm ending a song that's in the key of E. Just like with the C and the A chord, we can add a suspended chord for the E, which sounds really nice. So again, if this is my E chord, I'm just going to take my 4th finger and I'm going to press it down on the 2nd fret of the G string. And that's going to kind of take over where my 1st finger is. But it's okay, I'm not going to pick up my 1st finger because I like to go back and forth between the E major to that suspended 4 and then back to the E major. So just keeping my 1st finger down makes things easier. We can also create an E major 7, again going to that major 7 variation, which again sounds very beautiful, but what we want to do is find that note right before the E note. We have an E right here, we have the low E, but we also have another E right here on the 2nd fret of the D string, so I just need to drop that down 1/2 step. So in order to do that, I need to kind of switch my fingers around, and I need to play with my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, and then my 1st finger on the 1st fret of the D string, and 2nd finger on the 1st fret of the G string. And this allows me to have that same E shape, but I'm just dropping down that second fret here on the D string by 1/2 step, and that's going to create that major 7 version of the E. All right, now let's look at the D chord. So this is going to be our D major right here, which for the D major we want to start our strumming on the D string. So we're going to avoid the low E string and the A string. So we're just strumming 4 strings here. Now one of my favorite ways to add a variation to this and really kind of spice up a song is to use the D major 7. And basically all I need to do for that is just bar the bottom 3 strings with my 1st finger. So if I'm going from this D, I'm just going to take my 2nd and 3rd finger off and drop my 1st finger and bar those bottom 3 strings. Oh, that's nice. A good place to use that D major 7 is going to be for like a walk to another chord. So let's say I have a song and I need to go from D major to B minor. I could just do that. I can just do a regular D major and then switch to B minor. But just to add a little bit of life, I can go from the D major, and then the measure before I need to switch to B minor, I'll switch to a D major 7, and then I'll go to that B minor. It just adds a little bit more beauty to the song, so it could sound something like this. So what I did there on that D major, I just added another A note way up here at the top, just a little bit of an embellishment there. It's quite a bit of a stretch. But it can be done with the D major 7 because you've got all these free fingers. With the D, we can also do the suspended chords, which again adds just a lot of layering that we can do. So with my D held down, I'm just going to take my 4th finger, my pinky, and I'm going to drop it down on the 3rd fret of that high E string to create the suspended 4. And then I can also just remove my 2nd finger altogether and have an open E string, and that's going to be my suspended 2nd for the D. So I can use those interchangeably while I'm strumming the D chord, and it could sound something like this. So this is going to be a D over F sharp add 11, and this chord works really nicely in the G chord family because we have that added G note down here on the 3rd fret of the high E string. Alright, I put together all of these chord variations and embellishments in a cheat sheet that is available to my patrons. If you are a patron, you can get that on my Patreon page down below in the description or up there in the information card. If you're not a patron yet, you can click that same link and become a patron and get access to that. Alright, I hope these chords help you to make some beautiful music. I will see you in the next lesson. Take care.